Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're gonna be doing a good old will it run video. This bike is not mine. A buddy of mine bought this. It's a 1970 CL350 and it's definitely seen better days. However, you got it for 400 bucks. It's got a title. The engine's not locked up. It's in pretty good shape for what it is, honestly. It came with the carburetors in a bag. The tank is over there on the table. Yeah, it's not too bad. So today we're just going to go through the entire bike and try to get it running and riding. I have a whole pile of parts in the corner that we've already ordered. So we're just going to go through it and see if we can get this thing fired up. Now, I'm having to film this intro after I've done a lot of the work to it already because I lost the original intro. So the clips might be jumping back and forth a little bit. The bike will be here and then it'll be over there, and shouldn't be too bad. I should be able to edit it all together fairly well. So let's jump into it. So like I said before, it's a 1970 CL350. From the quick looks of it, it looks like the last time it was registered was in 1980. And I don't have much information on it. I wasn't there when he picked it up. The only thing I've done with it so far is I took the cap off the charging system because I needed it for another project. So it's not leaking oil. It's just I took the cap off and the bike was on the kickstand and it just pissed oil everywhere. But that's all I've done to it so far. So a quick look at some of the stuff wrong with it. Obviously, it's got a front flat tire. Missing the carburetors, but they're in a bag that came with the bike. Front headlight is missing, all wiring sticking out. What else is wrong right off the rip? No throttle, and the lower part of our little switch box is taken apart. The wire that goes to the button to ground out the starting system is just kind of hacked off. That's pretty much it. I mean, everything actually looks pretty good. The things that are usually mangled are these front fenders, which that one is pretty clean, just besides some dirt and a little bit of pitting. The tank, I haven't even opened it. Oh yeah, tank's bad. Tank's really bad. That's okay. It's missing the petcock. Otherwise, it looks all right. It's got the original air filters on it, which these are actually pretty hard to come by. They definitely will need to be cleaned. And it's got, it looks like a hooker exhaust system on it. So this is a CL350, but they put a 2-in-1, essentially CB exhaust on it. And when they did that, they took off the center stand for clearance. So that's why I have them on. Have the rear tire on jack stands. Let's see what it looks like under the seat. There we go. God, it doesn't look too bad at all. Just missing the battery. Sock to the starter solenoid. It's got the old school rectifier in it. This is probably a year or two before they swapped over to the newer style. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. And actually, still has the key. Or came with the key. That's a little loose. Nice. Oh, and then when I was moving around, I noticed the clutch cable. Something's going on with it down there. I think it might be. There's a little cam in the clutch actuator that actuates against a rod to engage the clutch. So I'm assuming it's just skipping off of that. So we'll have to dive into that. But first thing we're going to do is just hook up 12 volts to it, click the key over and see what we have as far as power and see if we can get this thing to have some spark. Oh, there we go. I should have mentioned before, the engine is free. And it feels like it's got pretty good compression too. So I guess we can see if the starter works. So on these old Hondas, come on, focus. This yellow wire with the red line on it is always going to be your starter wire that goes to your button on your handlebars and just grounds out to activate your starter. So in theory, we should be able to just hit the key on and then ground that wire to the handlebar and activate the starter. So we'll get the key kicked on. Cool. All right. Well, we'll pull the plugs out, see how they look, and see if we're getting any spark. They don't look bad at all. Although there's like no gap between the ground strap and the electrode. So we'll fix that. The left side has a huge gap on it. All right, I gapped the plugs roughly to like 30 thou. I'm not exactly sure what the spec calls out for, but should be fine enough for us to see if we have any spark. All right, let's see if we got any spark. I don't see anything, but this plug wire is also pretty much cooked. Nada. All right. Well, I'll take the points cover off and see what it looks like under there. The points might be corroded beyond belief. Points don't look too bad. We'll run a file over them just to see. We should get a little spark across the gap. We're not getting anything. I'm going to take the tank off and see if I can get to the ignition coils. Okay, after a few minutes of digging around, just tracing some wires, we didn't have any power coming to the coil or the coils or the points. So I went up here to this mess of wires, and I noticed that this black and white, which is, I believe, switched hot. Essentially, once you switch the power on the handlebars to tell it to start or not start, sends the power through this black and white wire, which eventually comes back to send power to the coils and everything else like that. So I'm going to get everything plugged back in and see if we have some spark. We have spark. Nice. Well, hell, I'm going to throw some fuel down in the cylinders and see if we can get it to kick over. Come on. I'm going to check the timing real quick, make sure it's not out of whack. So basically all I'm doing here is making sure that the timing's actually right. Because it sounded like it wanted to start, but it kind of sounded like it was slightly out of time. Yeah, so they're both out slightly. All right, let's bang on so we can lock down the plate, and then the right side we should just be able to adjust the gap. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I timed a twin coil. From what I remember on these bikes, on these 350s and 360s, what I think the manual tells you to do is set the gap on the left side, lock it down, and then adjust your points plate to get your timing correct on the left side. And then when you go to do your right side, don't move the timing plate to get your timing correct. Just adjust the gap until the timing's correct. And then you want to go back and check to make sure your gap's within spec. That's what I remember at least, but I'm kind of too lazy to go digging, at least for now. If I can't get it working, then we'll go looking. All right, that should be pretty good. Really, I should adjust the valve lash as well, but it sounded like compression was fine. Now we got the pop and bang a couple times. I think that's good enough for me. I think the next thing to do is get the carbs cleaned up, get those put on, and it's probably not going to want... Typically when you do that, if you don't fuel in the cylinders like that and try to kick it over, it'll run and rev up real quick and then die. But on some of these bikes, if you don't have the carburetors on them, it takes in way too much air and it doesn't want to run. All right, so it's about a week after I filmed that last clip. I had to stop and we had to order a bunch of parts to get this thing rolling. So the carburetors are all torn down. I'm going to go ahead and get the parts thrown in the ultrasonic cleaner, get those going, and then we should be able to start assembling things. So if you guys don't have an ultrasonic cleaner and you work on these old bikes pretty frequently, I would really recommend getting one. This one's just from Amazon. I think I probably paid maybe $100 for it, and it's worth its weight in gold. All right, we got our carburetors out of the ultrasonic cleaner. They turned out pretty good. I had to leave them in there longer than I typically do because I didn't use the actual carb cleaner. I just used degreaser, so didn't eat away at the stuff as quickly, but they're pretty good for what we need. I mean, eventually we're not going to be running these at all. This bike is probably going to get the same treatment that the CL175 did, so we're just trying to get it running. So I got a couple carb kits from Common Motor. I'll get these carbs thrown back together, and we should be good to mount them back on the bike, and then maybe we'll throw some fuel in it, see if it'll kick over. Okay, before I get the carburetors put back on the bike, I'm going to take these intake manifolds and put them in the ultrasonic cleaner to, clean them up, but also soften them because they are hard as rocks, which happens after, I mean, these are, 40, 50 years old. So, we're going to get them tossed in there. Hopefully they soften up, and then I'll get the gaskets taken off of them, and we'll throw them back on the bike. Okay, I have our intake boots heating up in the ultrasonic cleaner. But before I can put the carburetors on, I got to get this right control figured out. I got to install a new throttle tube, but before I can do that, I want to go ahead and reconnect this starter wire to this little pad. So in there you can see, hopefully, there's a little pad in there. It should be soldered to. So I'm going to take that back out, get it soldered back together, and reassemble this thing. All right, that should work. All right, this thing's starting to come together now. Carburetor's back on it. Air filters. I cleaned them out the best I could with a compressed air, so we'll see what happens. If not, I might have some pod filters I could throw on for the time being. Got the right control put back together, new throttle cable. I forgot on these bikes they're supposed to cables are supposed to go down through this little section here, but it's fine for the time being. Threw a new grip on. Got the carbs synced, so everything should be good there. So I think we should be able to throw some fuel in it to see if it'll kick over and idle. Okay, so it's pretty much the same setup as last time. Just got it hooked to my car. And I'm gonna put a little bit of fuel in the fuel lines. I just have a couple fuel lines zip tied to the side of the bike going to the carburetors. All right, let me get some fuel in it and see if it'll kick over. All right, choke's on, got the fuel in. Just gotta turn the key on and see what happens. All right, shockingly easy. Either we have a vacuum leak or the throttle cable sticking when you go to rev it kind of hangs, the idle kind of hangs, which is fine. It's easy to figure out. Running good. I think that's where I'm going to leave off this video. I'll do a follow-up video. I still got to clear out the gas tank, put the new front tire and tube in it. There's a few things I have to do. So I appreciate you hanging out. This is kind of a different video for me. But yeah, until next time, see you guys later.